Minnesota is actually in a kind of interesting spot of sorts. When you look back at their 2021 season, it wasn't Kirk Cousins' fault, to be honest with you. Sure, he made some critical mistakes, but none were more critical than whatever the hell Mike Zimmer was cooking up for his defense and the offense. To be honest with you, there were a lot of interesting decisions on Mike Zimmer's end that cost the Vikings some very critical games that could have landed them into the playoffs. So, alongside Mike Zimmer's questionable play calling, and he preaches defense because he's a defensive coach, his defense got torched. Yes, his defense was, mac and moldy cheese. So the Vikings go 8-9. They miss out on the playoffs. And by the way, they got beat. They got embarrassed on the last play of the game against the winless Detroit Lions. They gave them their first win of the season last year. How embarrassing. So out goes Mike Zimmer, and surprisingly, also out goes Rick Spielman, who was responsible for drafting Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen, Stephon Diggs. It's kind of a surprising move that he also got shown the door, but it is what it is. So now comes in Kevin O'Connell, the former Rams offensive coordinator, coming off a Super Bowl win with the team, and as general manager, you bring in former vice president of football operations, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. Not sure what exactly his track record is, but this is your duo to lead the new regime in Minnesota. So for Minnesota and the Vikings, to bounce back from that atrocious season with Mike Zimmer, your top goal for 2022 is to, for one, establish trust in your new head coach, Kevin O'Connell, but don't put so much pressure on him that he quits. And two is to make sure that Kirk Cousins repeats that same level of play in 2021. He actually was pretty good. I mean, aside from his usual captain check down Kirk Cousins level. So anyway, those are your two primary goals for 2021. Establish trust in Kevin O'Connell and make sure that Kirk Cousins plays at that level he did in 2021, but even better. So some of their offseason priorities from when we recapped the Minnesota Vikings a couple months ago was, well, they had to target addressing their defense because their defense was garbage. Their defense was one of the worst in the NFL. They couldn't get to the quarterback. They gave up a lot of big plays in the secondary, and even if it was small plays, they turned into big plays. They also had to restructure Kirk Cousins' ridiculous contract because if they let him play in the final year of that contract, they would have absorbed a huge amount of money. And for what? So they actually managed to get that goal accomplished. They gave him a 1-year extension. So that large dead cap split into two. So that was something. And that allowed them to sign 2 key players to their defense. Green Bay Packers outside linebackers is za'darius Smith. So they stole him from the division leading rivals. And they also got a key piece from the Arizona Cardinals defense, inside linebacker Jordan Hicks. So some key pieces in the defense already that should make your defense better. Scheme wise, it remains to be seen. Now in the draft is where they did their work as well. They added Georgia safety Lewis Cine, Clemson corners Andrew Booth, and Missouri corner Caleb Evans, if I'm pronouncing that right. Both of them pretty solid in coverage. And then they added a guard to better protect Kirk Cousins from LSU, Ed Ingram. So a solid draft by the Minnesota Vikings to address the defense, further replenish it. And that's, I think, for the Minnesota Vikings going to the season, I mean, it looks better improved. Like their defense looks better improved on paper. We'll see how they do in preseason. Who wins? Who gets their spot in the starting lineup, in the rotation. It remains to be seen how this defense comes together, it can look really bad like it did last season, or it can look in the middle, like solid, or it can look really damn good. Because the addition of Za'Darius Smith really helps out the pass rush alongside Harrison Smith and Danielle Hunter. And, the offensive line was pretty good last season, and adding a guard in Ed Ingram, to the rotation, not the starting rotation, but as bench rotation, could be good. And most importantly for the Minnesota Vikings is Kirk Cousins. He has an offensive-minded head coach now. He cannot screw this up. He has a bevy of talent around him. He has Dalvin Cook. He has Alexander Madison as a decent backup too. He has talented receivers in Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. I think they also grabbed the tight end in the draft too. But either way, Kirk Cousins needs to have a really good season. He can't be Kirk Midsons. He can't be, how does MJF say it? Mid! He can't be that guy. There are literally no more excuses for Cousins to fail, to let the Minnesota Vikings down, especially when the brightest on them. He can't let them down. He cannot mentally collapse under that pressure. So some of their key games going into 2022, it's the very first week against the Green Bay Packers. It's just like week 11 last year. It's a pressure-inducing game right off the bat. Then you go into Philadelphia on a Monday night, facing off against maybe a red hot or maybe a ice cold looking to bounce back Philadelphia Eagles squad on a Monday night. Then you got some really tough games in a 3-game homestand in weeks 10 to 12 against the Buffalo Bills. Oh no, you go to the Buffalo Bills and then you return home to face the Cowboys and the Patriots. The Patriots game being the nightcap on Thanksgiving. A really tough stretch for Kirk Cousins and the Vikings. And then depending on what happens late in the season, you could potentially be facing the Green Bay Packers in Lambeau for the division title, or you could be playing for pride, or you could be playing for a wild card spot. Just as long as Kirk Cousins is there. Remember last time that happened late in the season? Anyway, so for the Minnesota Vikings, they can be an interesting X factor, to be honest with you. They have the talent on offense. They got a little bit better on defense, if not way better. But how much of an X factor can they be in this NFC? So this NFC is honestly pretty weak. But how much can they take advantage of that? And for Dalvin Cook, he did not play that many games last season, so he has to stay healthy for the Vikings to really succeed. But even then, Kirk Cousins cannot rely on the run so much. He has to actually, be a quarterback that can throw. And then defensively, who steps up in training camp and preseason to line up opposite Patrick Peterson in the secondary? We will see. So for the Minnesota Vikings, especially considering that the Green Bay Packers are a little weaker on both ends of the ball, this is an opportunity for them. This is an opportunity for them, even with the new head coach Kevin O'Connell. This is an opportunity for them to stake their claim in the NFC North and potentially take the division title away from them, and maybe get a playoff win in this NFC. So who knows what the ceiling is for the Minnesota Vikings? They can go 8 wins max or 10 and win the division. Either way, the Minnesota Vikings and Kirk Cousins, this is their time. There are no more excuses for Kirk Cousins in 2022.